Hello and welcome to another episode of the Self-Made Podcast. In this episode, I get my good friend Robb Mcgeary on the podcast, otherwise known as Chad Thundercock, apparently, because that's what he put down on the podcast form. What I wanted to do with Robb is something a little bit different to what I usually do. We often talk about fitness, training, and lifestyle, but we now delve a lot more into the lifestyle route and talk about personal development. And Robb, over the course of the last 2 years, has really gone on a little bit of a venture and a bit of an exploration into personal development. And he is a strength coach himself and a personal trainer, but I wanted to delve into how people should best approach bettering themselves. What has he learned from the experiments he's tried? We talk things here, a little bit off piece. We talk about the effects of pornography and how that affects, a lot of men and women and takes away from the time they can spend bettering themselves. We talk about his exploration into NoFap, what he learned from it. Was it beneficial? Was it not? We talk about cold therapy, breathwork, meditation. We talk about magic mushrooms and a number of other things in this podcast, which is a little bit off piece and a little bit different from what you'll hear in the mainstream. If you want to listen to Robb, do go follow on Instagram. The guy is incredibly funny and his content is absolutely fantastic, whether it's from a body composition standpoint or a personal development standpoint. As always, if you like the show, please drop this a share, tagging myself and Robb, and I'll leave you with myself and Robb Mcgeary. So, I normally ask every guest to tell me a little bit about themselves, but this is a very different episode. But actually, you know what? Fuck it, because I think this will be fun because you signed into this chat as Chad Thundercock. Tell me a little bit who Chad Thundercock is and what's he known for?
Hey, I'm a little bit disappointed in myself that I didn't change my Zoom name to Chad Thundercock. No, it's just come out as my actual name. Chad Thundercock is a persona that I have embodied over the last couple of years, going from a out of shape, depressed, average man, living in what I call tolerable mediocrity, to then thinking, well, how do I want my life to look? How do I want to feel? What do I want to do? What type of man would do that? And this man sprung to mind, Chad Thundercock. What does Chad Thundercock do? These things. And that's what I do.
And I've had this idea of what I wanted this podcast to be, and it'd be a little bit different for a little while, because for anyone who doesn't sort of go into the podcast that we both share with our friend JP at the Rockstar Fitness Podcast on YouTube, there seems to be a bit of a running trend of every week, Robb is doing something new. He's doing some personal development thing, ranging from the quite sensible and interesting to the downright fucking insane. So, when you spoke about your intro, you basically said it wasn't a big fitness thing that you mentioned. You mentioned overweight, but it was living in mediocrity. So, and obviously share what you're obviously willing to share. What got you to this stage? What was that point where you started thinking, I need to make some changes? What was that mediocrity for you?
So for me, it was zero zest for life. So it went through a spate of 3 things all in one go. My little dog, my absolute pride and joy, gem of the world, was killed. Soon after that, marriage broke down. And then just after that, COVID shut all the gyms. So the 3 things I cared about the most were gone. And when those things are gone, and obviously I had extra time because the thing's been shut. I had a lot of time to look at my life and try and figure out who the fuck I was. That was the first thing. Just 3 big, parts of my identity. Well, I'm a great dog owner, I'm a good husband, great PT, and suddenly those things are gone. Right, who the fuck am I? You could call it a little bit of an existential crisis, a little bit, with less emphasis on crisis, because it was. And then, like I say, and then start thinking, well, I've got no zest, no enjoyment out of what I'm doing, energy shot, not really training at home. And luckily for me, lots and lots of frustration kept creeping in. Whereas what I said earlier with tolerable mediocrity is you just kind of get comfortable with, you're stuck in that comfort zone and you're not really pushing it yourself. There's no drive. Luckily for me, that's something I've had for years before all that happened. So yeah, it knocked me for 6, but luckily there was still some previous mental training in there, shall we say, for me to go, no, there's more. I know I can do more and get more out of my life, get more energy back, get more purpose, more passion. How the hell can I actually do that?
Do you think, like, because we both work in the fitness industry, we see people make massive changes. And the trends that I always see is people coming in, it's like, it's marriage breaking up, it's getting diagnosed with cancer and being in recovery, it's getting a bad news from the doctor. These things often make the best clients. And, when we're going into sort of personal development, whether it's in the gym, outside the gym, if it's not masturbating for a year, whatever those things are.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like you needed these big setbacks to actually make you start taking this seriously and start to uncover yourself? Or do you think like you could have gradually built yourself out of that mediocrity?
Do you know what? It's probably, and it took me a while to realise, but there are more positives that came from those setbacks than negatives now. Way more positives. But it takes a lot of introspection and perspective to get to that point. Had those things not happened 2 years down the line, I would probably still be the same. So I think I don't wish bad things on anyone, but sometimes as long as you can turn these, tragedies into an opportunity, it can be that wake-up call that some people need.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is some people never get to that point, but
yeah. And I totally agree with that. I mean, I've not had obviously some of the things that obviously you've mentioned on there, but like whether it's family deaths, whether it's breakups, whether it's all those sort of things, I look back on those things, and whether it's those moments or it's like moving to Hong Kong or starting a new, like getting accepted to a new job, there's something that's a pattern break. Like going and chatting to a girl in a bar and wanting to stay having a conversation. There's something that's a pattern break in life that just sort of kickstarts those sort of changes, I suppose.
That's huge. That's exactly it. And that's the thing. While we're just running that same routine over and over and over again, and you might be happy in that routine. It might be a good marriage or relationship rather than a great marriage or relationship. Your body might be in okay shape rather than great shape. And that's the thing. We get stuck in that cycle of, well, things are okay and things could be a lot worse. So cool, this is my lot. I'll accept this and I'll just plod along happily.
Yeah.
But there's always a way to feel fucking 20 times better.
I think as well, like, it's difficult things. Without necessarily saying any names for 18 days. Now I want to throw that out there. Like, I was in a place of like, it, being in a relatively very toxic work environment. And like, I was in that comfort block with that work environment of like, I'm doing all right. I'm in a decent place, fairly respected. I'm getting paid all right. And like, you get into that point where when you're in that mediocrity, the fear, I see it anyway, the fear of jumping and doing something new and it going wrong and falling on your face becomes scarier when you feel you have that thing to lose. And like I knew for me is that over time, I remember doing a podcast with Umar last like July time. And I listened to the podcast I did with him. And about 6 or 8 months later, I did a podcast with my mate Brett. I listened to the two back, and neither of them were bad. But I looked at the confidence that I had in the first compared to the second. And that was a big turning point for me that I would like to think would mean that I would be more willing to take leaps, take chances in my life without that big pattern break. Because when I looked at it, I was like, everyone talks about the risk of making a decision. If I do this, this is the risk. I could fall on my face, I could fail, I could do this. But often no one talks, I think about the risk of not making a decision. Every time I decided not to back myself, every time I decided to choose mediocrity over what I wanted, what I believed in, my values, my belief, the way I like to be treated, is me saying, I'm deserving of how my life is. I'm deserving of how I'm being treated. And over time, they're not a big drop like going for your dream job and not getting it. But it's it's something that eats away at you. And when you're in 6 months later down the line, you're deep in mediocrity, and you don't even realise how you got
there. Yeah, and seeing how quick that time goes by just adds to the frustration, adds to it. And that should be a massive alarm call for most people. It's how quickly this got that, like how quickly this flipping year's flown by. And if you haven't got anywhere close to, I don't know, the resolutions that you set yourself at the beginning of the year, ask yourself why not? What have you been doing with that goddamn time? And in terms of that making a decision, something that was a game changer for me, or you always look at the risks of, if I do this, this could happen, or this might go wrong, or this might not go the way of the planet. But people don't look at the opposite. Or what's the risk? What's the drawbacks of not making this decision? Well, all the things that are leading you to even contemplate this decision now, because you wouldn't even be thinking about this if you weren't happy with what you're currently doing. All those things are still there. So what is that? Okay, so there might be a little bit extra risk, it might be a little bit extra work involved, whatever the goal is. But you must have greater perceived rewards than staying where you currently are now. Otherwise, you wouldn't be contemplating it. It's always scarier than what we perceive it to be. Always. I've never, I really have to rack my brains. I've never known anyone try and make a massive turnaround or leap in their life in any endeavor that have then turned around and said, I wish I didn't do that. Because even if it goes wrong, there's lessons from it.
And you look back and all the slightly, that we'll make this silly soon, but without going into the sort of like more the morbid motivational posts where people go, you regret the things you don't do when it's too late. Like, yeah, it's definitely true. I never regretted the things I tried. I never regretted the person I went when I was a teenager trying to chat to women. I never regretted the girls I spoke to. I never regretted the job I didn't take. I never regretted the work I didn't do, which is very cliche and catchy. But it's like it's so true that we just let things fly by. And like for me, like going back to the analogy I just spoke about, where our old workplace, it's like I was so scared of. Well, I was conditioned a little bit to think the world outside is scary, but I believed it hook, line, and sinker to the point where I was like, oh man, what if I don't do it? I'm in a different country. I cannot provide, for my fiance. I'm 6 months out. I'm in a better financial position. I'm in a more comfortable position mentally in myself. I'm trying things. I'm doing things. I'm like, I didn't think that was possible. And when you realize you get out, it's like everything I was being told by people was like, not as bad as you think. You're all right. And it's never as bad. It was Steven Seagal, right? In movie Hard to Kill. The anticipation of death is worse than death itself. Which is like awesome for a man who, barely could speak a word of English. So, good on Steven Seagal. So going on to have you tried any personal development stuff? Whether it's, I know obviously the gym, because that was your line of work. But other than that, have you tried bettering yourself prior to all this big pattern break in your life? And if so, how much success have you had before this last year?
So before these last 2 years,
gosh, 2 years.
Yeah, man. You could say my personal development was mediocre. There were things I knew, there were books I read, there was stuff I wasn't actioning. Energy wasn't great. I would occasionally lose my mojo for training, things like that. But I was always consistent with it because I was a big believer that as a PT you should be. And if you're suddenly finding you're not, you better goddamn reach out and ask for help from someone because you need to sort it out. A PT that doesn't train is not a PT anymore.
I think not so to cut you off, but I think that's an important thing to bring up for any coaches that listen to this, because a lot of coaches follow me and I know coaches follow you. We often put this pressure on ourselves that we have to be beast mode all the time. And for a while I had my passion for training knocked out of me. And it was I doubled down on it. And I felt even worse because I felt so ashamed that I wasn't the epitome of in shape or always going into the gym. And sometimes it doesn't make anything easier hating on that and hating on yourself, right? We all do it. We all go through peaks and troughs.
Yeah, massively so. It's part of the reason is half of the reason I got in the industry is this burning desire to help people. Another part of the reason I got into the industry is my own passion for fitness and health and staying in that zone, so to speak, being surrounded by it. But when I find, and I've seen plenty, personal trainers that don't really look after themselves, or personal trainers that don't seem to have a passion for any sort of training whatsoever. Like, why are you in this then? Yeah, I get it. You want to help people, but you could also help people another way. Like, there's many routes you could go down. If you've not got a passion yourself for grabbing a set of dumbbells or whatever it is, whatever the fucking physical activity it is, there's no passion there for that. What are you actually doing?
I think you can always tell this, but if people are passionate about something, they know who's come before them. Yeah, I always say this, like, you know, when I look at a group of people, certainly in the UK and like the more developed fitness industry, I'm not as judgmental of people here with this, but people go, oh, really passionate about training. Cool, tell me about Charles Poliquin. And you just see the eyes glaze over. You know, like, no, tell me about Dorian Yates. And then when like these names aren't going in, it's like, are you really, or do you just like training yourself?
Yeah. Probably get it.
So with like, obviously with going back onto your own personal development like thing, so we had the pattern break. You know, where did we start piecing ourselves back together? How did this journey kind of start off?
So it was an audit of my life, shall we say, is looking at everything I was doing. Why am I not happy? Why am I not progressing? What am I knowingly doing that is stopping me from progressing? So taking a look at all these destructive, compulsive habits that you're currently indulging in, rather than what you could be doing to increase your work output, health, whatever the goal is. You know, better your relationship. What are you knowingly doing that is stopping you from doing that? And most guys, especially, when you get down to it and start doing this auditing, there's a lot of time being spent on stupid stuff with zero reward or benefit. And most guys will not admit to this. It's unhealthy obsessions with porn, watching way too much than is considered a healthy use, and a compulsive need to jerk off. And if you were to grab a stopwatch or someone to do this for you, and then you had a bit of hands on it,
just sitting over you, just going, start.
if you've got the screen time on your phone, right, and you look at it at the end of the week and you go, Jesus Christ, I spent 48 hours on my phone last week. That's fucking ridiculous, right? I reckon.
I thought you were going to say, like, you were basically almost timing how long it takes. You know, like, I've spent 24 hours wanking, but I managed to do like 374 in that time.
Imagine if you did. Imagine if you find the moments of every minute that you've got your hand down your fucking pants, or you're just on a porn site or OnlyFans, or just gawping at girls on Instagram. Imagine if you could actually time all that. I bet it would be as shocking as most people's screen times are. I would be as shocked.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what am I actually doing with my time? Is there any benefit to this? Is there any payoff whatsoever? So you get online and you start looking and you go down rabbit holes and you go, oh, I think I've found communities that I want to be part of here. They sound like they could add something to my life from their reported benefits. And I have always been someone to want to, A, I never want my life to be boring. B, I never want someone to think of me as boring. And I just like trying things I haven't tried before. I'll try anything once, literally anything once.
So did you start on the porn route? Was that something that was like one of the first things you came to?
It was always in the back of my mind because of online circles I've mixed it, like Elliot Hulse. I've watched Elliot Hulse for years, like probably round about when I first got into the industry 12 years ago, is when I was already watching Elliot Hulse. Jordan Peterson, a lot of interviews with Jordan Peterson about young men especially and the damaging effects of porn on them. And, you know, certain, not that I am this mindset whatsoever, but the red pill forums, things like that, Reddit forums, things, You go on there and there's common themes. Now, if you take some of there is a lot of misogynistic behavior in there. There are a lot of absolute chumps. There's a lot of guys that just hate women because they've never had good experiences with women. Take all that out of the equation. The main theme of all these things together, what Jordan Peterson's preaching, what Elliot Holster's preaching, what some of these male-centric groups and forums are preaching, is to become a more sovereign, desirable man. Someone that a woman would want to be with. No woman has ever said, God, that man's really hot because of how much porn he watches or how much he jerks off every single day. And I would say most of us, whatever the hell we are doing, whether that's in terms of our social status, in terms of our physical appearance, in terms of how much money or how we spend that money or flash it around, is all to do with mate-seeking behavior. Everything we do is geared towards that. It's how can I get more women to want me? Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the deeper and deeper I go down these routes, the more I find, you get more energy by doing some of these things or by not doing some of these things. Therefore, if I've got more energy, what can I push that towards? I get better workouts, I get better sleep, I have more positive outlook on life. I've got more time and energy to create stuff rather than consume. Business is going up, I'm getting better ideas and more creative. It's all these things together. I can't say one thing is 100% what did it. It's just a consistent effort across my day of, spending my time more productively, not wasting it on stupid tasks with zero return on investment. There is no benefit to watching porn. There's absolutely no benefit.
So when we look at sort of like some of these trends, and obviously the time thing, having more to do all of those things is probably the biggest. But you know what's going to say to this? There's always going to be a backlash with people listening to this guy goes, he doesn't like porn, and we'll go into the no fap thing in a little bit. But a lot of people are going to go, well, what harm does it do? What harm does me watching a little bit of porn do? From the trends that you saw going down these wormholes, what were some of the things you noticed as the problems with people that ended up consuming porn in whatever amount it is?
So there were, because again, you're right, people will say there's no harm in it, there's nothing wrong with watching it, what are the actual backlashes from it? So studies have been done, and there are limited studies, because it's not something people really want to study. Why would you want to watch a load of geezers?
How many people are going to be honest about it in the study, going, I watch porn like 400 times a night. Yeah, definitely. I'm a 9 times a night guy. Like, who's going to say that to a random guy in a university study?
Yeah, exactly. So it was looking at, I can't remember the exact names, the time frames of the 3 categories, but it was 3 categories. There was healthy porn use, which was like less than, it was like 24 minutes worth per week watched.
Okay.
There was compulsive, which was we're up in the hours. And then there was, I can't remember for the life of me the name, but it was in the middle. It wasn't hours and hours and hours on top, it was in the middle. And the compulsive guys obviously are fucked. But these guys in the middle were the ones that reported less emotional connection with people and themselves, more sexual dysfunction, erectile dysfunction, inability to talk to females, more stress, more anxiety, because these guys were also stressed, anxious, and shameful, and in a dysfunctional relationship with not just the amount, but the type of porn that they were watching as well. Now, the guys who were watching hours and hours and hours per week are kind of got like, they're neutral, they're just numb. There's no stress, anxiety, or shame or guilt there. They've just become numb to it. That is now their day-to-day life. People that just can't stop eating but aren't necessarily getting an emotional response from it, it's the same thing. People that are getting an emotional response and stuck in this negative cycle, are the ones really, really at risk. But then there's people at the beginning who can, it's the same as getting in shape. You don't have to be 100% clean. You can still get a little bit of junk in there. You don't have to be 100% porn free. You could get a little bit of porn in there. I don't know what that amount is. But from what I remember, this healthy use was classed as like 24 minutes per week, which is not a lot in the grand scheme of things if you think about it. But then, how much you could watch in 24 minutes? Fucking hell. That's a lot. break it down into 30-second clips. Jesus, that's a lot of porn. And it might even be Jordan Peterson that said this. I can't remember. I heard someone say it recently on a podcast that young men now have the ability, the opportunity to see 300 women, different women naked before they've even got out of bed. That's not healthy.
Yeah.
Not healthy. It's certainly not a healthy use of time. And it does present a very skewed relationship of how sex works, how relationships work, how a man should or could be in bed. You can watch a 40-minute long vid of this geezer thinking, God, that's what sex should be like. When on average, most guys come within 3 minutes. Do you know? If you loaded up a porn vid and the geezer came within 3 minutes, you'd be like, I want my money back, and I think you should be spending money on it. And it's the same, and not just full-on hardcore porn. OnlyFans, all these things. It presents this relationship that in order for me to see a woman naked, there has to be a transaction. In this case, it's financial. That's just gonna, and then what happens when you finally get in a relationship with a girl and she's not keen on sending you, I mean, I don't know how many, some of these OnlyFans girls, I guess, are doing it several times a day. And suddenly this girl who you're with, who you like, who you admire, who is actually physically in front of you, doesn't want to send you 700 fucking nudes a day. Suddenly your expectation of what a relationship and a transactional relationship looks like is way, way above what you're going to get. So you're going to be like, oh, this ain't right for me then. I need something else. And what's going to happen? It's never going to hit that expectation. It's never going to hit it.
Yeah. There's some really important things with that. I think the big thing we were saying about the average time a male needs to ejaculate. Like, you watch porn and, like, especially the people that are over that 24 minutes that, watch it for the storylines. Like, you're looking at how long are these guys going for? How many positions are these guys going for? And, like, even if you don't want that, even if you don't feel you need to be like that, you're going to make yourself feel inadequate that your sex isn't good, that you're not good at it, or you're fucking small.
Yeah.
Oh, seriously, you'll feel that you've got to last 25 minutes and you've got to be, a minimum of 9 inches erect to ever satisfy a woman. And I'm just like that's most of the population that's just going to feel inadequate.
Yeah. It's not healthy. In terms of perceived body image, the porn industry has as many dark behind the scenes secrets as the fitness industry does. Both cause much damage as each other to the general population in terms of their idea of what a human being should be like.
Yeah. OnlyFans is an interesting one. I watched there's a charisma sort of channel that I watch on YouTube. Really good. He breaks down people's skills and communication. He broke down OnlyFans, and I thought that was really fascinating in terms of it's that sort of tease is you'll get this if you do this, and it's in the same way that a marketer would get by their programs, and you can see you look at the OnlyFans, how are people getting bought in this? You can find porn for free, and as you said, hundreds of women before you get out of bed. Whereas I don't know, about you, but back in my day, you only had porn when you found it under your dad's bed or in the woods,
or you stole it from the garage.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't have this ability to click on Google and just touch anyone nude available. And you think, why would these guys pay for an OnlyFans? You can sort of see with the employees they try and get how people. It's like going into a casino. And that's a really dangerous way, in a way that you just feel like you're being manipulated.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing with the OnlyFans, why people would then put money up, there's a much, much stronger emotional connection in that transaction than just watching regular porn of some guy and some girl who aren't even involved with the camera, that sort of thing. You can suddenly request a particular type of photo that you want. Yeah, she could say your name in a video. You can almost get that online, what do they call it with the hookers? Girlfriend experience without having to hire a hooker.
Yeah.
Which,
So
you know,
you
I'm
went
sure more
into,
than
you
they've done
found
as well.
the issues we had with porn and the issues that guys faced. And so where did you go with this information? So what did you, because you obviously had a period of time where you were no fap. And is this where it immediately went? Was there a transition for this? And if when you get to the no fap section, why go to the last end of the spectrum? What made you go that far?
So it was just a case of, okay, how can I take this further? So I've had this long streak of not watching porn. And like anyone, there's all similarities between diets and all this stuff. Occasional relapses, which is fine. You just remember why you're doing it, and then you crack on again, not crack off, you crack on. And yeah, then again, like I'm looking for, okay, what's this no fap I keep hearing about? Because it's all over the place. Okay, it's guys that do not jerk off, full stop. It's not a case of they're not jerking off, full stop. And these guys report better energy, better sex, better outlook, more positivity, every masculine area of their life improving. You're like, okay, I'll give that a go as well. Because what if I wouldn't? I've got nothing to lose by doing this. It's certainly not a dangerous habit. Like there's no risk involved by doing it. And like I always do, I look at both sides of the spectrum. Okay, what are the drawbacks? Well, there's no drawbacks, but there are also purported benefits to doing the opposite of nofap, to jerking off. Again, it comes down to, okay, so there's nothing unhealthy about jerking off. There's nothing unhealthy about not jerking off. But there is unhealthy circumstances from compulsively doing it again and again and again and again. In which case, take a look at your life, do the audit. Is it a compulsive behavior? Like if you were to time it, is this taking up a shitload of your time? Are you losing a lot of energy because of this? Or are you just occasionally doing it because your sex drive is really high and you're just a bit horny and it's a quick thing to do? If it's turning into lots and lots of time lost in the week, we're going down a dark path there. What else could you be doing with that time? And so with nofap, like I would never, and I don't do this with my guys that I do talk about this subject with, I don't say try nofap. I suggest looking at how much time you're spending doing these pointless things, how you feel about how much you're doing it, and then make a decision there. If nofap is going to help you, doing 30 days no fapping, if that is going to help you get a control of your compulsive need to jerk off, fantastic, let's do it. If 60 days, if 90 days, awesome, let's do it. Then you'll have a much better handle on how often you jerk off, and you could probably, like any bad habit, there might be relapses, but you can probably turn that into a healthy relationship with how often you're jerking off. You could go the other route. If you are not compulsively doing it and you're just doing it, I don't know, a couple times a week. I read something that there were benefits to your prostate if you jerk off 4 times a week. Sorry, ejaculate 4 times a week. So obviously that includes sex. Now, what would you rather be doing? Having sex 4 times a week or jerking off 4 times a week? Now, case in point, there is a need from the person you're with. If they want it 4 times a week, have they got the energy and the time 4 times a week? Or maybe you just can't meet 4 women per week if you're single. So yeah, maybe, I don't know, 50% or a third of those could be you jerking off. Some guys, it might be all 4. I don't know. But it's...
When I was in my late teens, I couldn't meet 4 women a year at one time.
Bruv, if the amount of porn that is online now had been available in 96, I'd have been fucked. We all would have been. But it's as researchers will say, masturbation is a healthy part of development, both males and females. And of course it is. But there comes a point when, what do you want your life to look like? What are you knowingly doing that's holding you back from it? If your time and your physical energy is going on those 2 things especially, those are 2 negative things you can cut out that has 0 risk or drawback to cutting them out.
So when looking at this, and you obviously, like you started, and this kind of carries on to any professional development, new habit, hobby, whatever else we're doing, did you set yourself a certain time frame? I'm going to do this for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Like how do you approach any habit really but obviously we'll in the context of this.
So for me, it was there's nothing out there at all, but because there's no physical studies done on no fapping really anyway. There was nothing to say, right, if you do no fap for this long, you'll experience this. So I couldn't say, right, by 90 days time, I would have not jerked off by this amount of time. It was a much more reverse engineered way of doing it. So I'm like, right, okay, can I go 30 days? Can I set myself a little 30-day challenge, tick the box each day, same as I would tracking my food or tracking my workouts or tracking my steps and my weight. What's the extra metric? Did I jerk off or not? Tick or cross. Can I do 30 days? Turns out 30 days was pretty damn easy because I wasn't compulsively doing it anyway. For guys who are compulsively doing it, that may be a lot harder. But again, it's breaking it down. Like, okay, so I just need to make sure I don't do it today. What can I fill my time with? Where's my focus going? Well, it's building my business, it's helping my clients out, it's getting my own workouts in, getting my steps in, creating something rather than consuming. If I'm watching something, I'm trying to make sure it's positive and engaging rather than just mindlessly binge watching something that I'm not that interested in. Because when boredom creeps in, we know we start snacking, we get horny, all this stuff. Making sure my sleep was good, all this stuff. Can I do that in one day? Cool. Now I've just got to hit a 7-day streak, and that's a successful week. If it's a successful week, I've just got to repeat that and stack up those successful weeks, and suddenly 30 days is gone. And at the end of 30 days, I'm like, well, how do I celebrate? This was dieting, I put it away for a cheat meal, so I still
hookers and blow, right?
Got the candles out, got the Luther Vandross on, and went to town. No, of course I didn't. But it's then, okay, well, I could go longer. I don't need to do this. So I tracked for a little bit longer. And then after the 90 days, which was, all my focus was not on, I need to not jerk off for 90 days. There are lots and lots of things. I have a daily planner, which I'm going through, ticking off lots and lots of things. This was just another thing to add to the mix. And most of my outcomes I work towards are across a 90-day spectrum. So I come to the end of the 90 days, cool. I have no real desire to start jerking off. Okay, there could be a healthy habit of doing it 2, 3, 4 times a week, but I have no need to. And I think you get a deeper understanding and more control of how your sex drive works. And I'm not trying to say this to brag or anything like that. And I say this with the utmost honesty that I can't remember the last time I had sex, and the sentence doesn't finish there. I can't remember the last time I had sex where I lasted less than 15 to 20 minutes. No more is it like 2 minutes of hold on, think of anything, breathe, whatever the hell you've got to do to not blow your load too soon. You just get into a flow state, I want to say. Not even thinking about that. You just kind of enjoying the experience more. I personally, because it is anecdotal, got a hell of a lot more control from not constantly watching porn and from not jerking off. Why? Because my desire levels throughout the week are not constantly doing this. Constant up and downs. It's exactly this. You can look at it through the exact same lens as someone that is binge eating. You can look at the exact same lens as someone's blood sugar levels through the day and through the week. How do you get greater control of it? We stop doing this, but there are, little interjections where you could take things up a little bit. You don't have to. You probably could go a little bit longer.
You know full well, right? When I make the soundbite, you bust about with podcasts, you can have the soundbite. I'm going to cut it off after. I can't remember the last time I had sex. End soundbite.
There, done.
If you want to know how long it was, watch the whole episode.
It's clickbait right there. I like it.
So the interesting thing, we spoiled off a little bit into like other habits there, and like you've mentioned that you do a lot of these things, and obviously the time frame being a big thing of like having an end goal and breaking that down into successful weeks. Like, what are some of the other things that you've tried in this sort of year of self-development, other than just so you're just not known as the no wank man?
So obviously no fat, no porn, meditation daily, but then I get a little bit weird with my meditations. And I also started using binaural beats, which I've done so for years for productivity. Now, again, I get a little bit weird with my binaural beats usage, which kind of links in with my weird meditations. Okay. So we can talk about that for a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. You mean you can't just sit there and go, I get a bit weird. No context.
So I've always been, since my early teens, where I would listen to a lot of metal, a lot of black and death metal. Marilyn Manson comes out and he's talking about the Church of Satan. Oh, I went right down these rabbit holes. Yeah, what are these guys singing about? What does all this mean? Read the Satanic Bible, stuff like that. There's nothing really
Can you could put Black Sabbath in reverse and that sort of stuff, right?
You will find some. If you play "Smells Like Teen Spirit" in reverse, it's a pretty catchy fucking song, but there's no dark messages in there.
If you put Nirvana on forward, you just see a young baby trying to rob money now, don't you?
That's fucking shocking, isn't it?
Fucking shocking.
Didn't stop him a couple of years ago recreating it.
And also being on Nevermind the Buzzcocks, blast from the past for everybody else, yeah.
Sneaky mofo.
Yeah.
So there are multiple benefits, both anecdotal and confirmed by research, benefits to meditation. And it's something I believe everyone should be doing. And it's something I believe has been hijacked by hippie, woo-woo, spiritual gurus that want to turn it into something that it's definitely not. Okay. But it has benefits for every single person. Someone says they don't need it, fine. But have you tried it? Have you tried it?
I think the people that say they don't need it often, they come and say, I hate meditation. And they go, I'll ask, why is it you hate meditation? It's like, I can't get into it. I just can't zone out. It's like, that's your need for it. Like, I struggle with that. And I've delved in using hobbies for that thing and delving into that and then going in and out meditation. I struggle to stick to it. But my mindset is that shows how much I need it, how much I need to be. We mentioned earlier on how quick this year's gone. How rarely are you present? If you're not jerking off on OnlyFans, you're in your work and you don't just take that step back and just like, I need to be on my own, I think, and let things slow down.
Massively so. I did a post the other day. Like if someone says they haven't got 20 minutes a day to meditate, they probably need 40 minutes. So if someone's saying they haven't got the time, my God, we need to, again, do that life audit, sort this out, because you're going to definitely feel the benefits from it. And like anything, it takes a while. I can't say the first time I ever meditated was successful, because it wouldn't have been. No way in hell would it have been. Skill?
It's a skill. It's a skill like anything else.
Skill. Yeah, skill. And even now, some days I nail it, some days I don't. Some days I'm like, that was a bit of a struggle. My mind went all over the place. Sometimes I'm like, that was cool. And sometimes I'm like, where the hell did that image come into my head? That's crazy, which we'll get to. But you've got to find the one that works for you as well. So for me, guided sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Sticking the beats in sometimes works, more often than not works. Just doing it on my own, trying to completely clear my head, sometimes works, doesn't work. It turns out group doesn't work for me either. So I went to a meditation class at a Buddhist center in Bayswater with young Mr. Alex Gates. I don't know if he'll watch this or not. We thought we'll give it a go because we know it. And it was good. It was guided, and then they kind of leave you to it. But all I could think of while I was in there is I'm in this room of about 40 people, all with their eyes closed. There's bound to be someone with their eyes open, just watching what's going on, or on their phone, or there's going to be someone doing something weird. And the first hour, I want to say it was an hour, first hour, nearly falling asleep because it was early morning, things like that. So I'm like, right, second hour, I'm going to nail it. This is going to be a really good, I'm going to complete meditating in the second hour. And all I could hear in this second hour was this geezer breathing through his nose. So fucking loud, so loud. So this entire hour, all I'm picturing is this geezer who, I keep opening my eyes and looking at. He's about 2 meters away from me, wrapped up in all these robes, looking like a right muppet. And he's just breathing through his nose, and all I can hear is his nose whistling. And all I'm thinking is, I want to grab that geezer fucking cover his airways. Which, is not the point. You're not meant to leave a meditation class angry. So I failed there. So group definitely wasn't for me because it was too many distractions. When I stick my earphones in for beats or I put an eye mask on, distractions are intensely limited. I feel it gives you a much, much better zone to work in to really get a handle on trying to control where your thoughts are going. And your thoughts are definitely going to go all over the place because we're so overstimulated. There's always something going on to think about. And even if there isn't, we create things. We create our own problems to think about. So meditation for every single person. Fellas especially, I wouldn't say every fella needs to know that. I wouldn't say every fella needs to stop porn. Every goddamn fella needs to meditate. Everyone. Ladies, you too. 100%.
Have you played around with flotation tanks? Because that's something I haven't played around with. I've always been intrigued with. Like how does that feel compare? How does that compare to just the regular meditation that you sort of do?
4 times I've been to float tank, float works in Docklands area. The very first time was equal parts terrifying and relaxing because A, it's pitch fucking black. You're in this weird little orb. You're floating, you can't feel anything. You're like, what is actually going on? It's weird at first. Getting in and just closing the lid and sitting in darkness that took a good few minutes. And then after a while, it's like, well, what am I meant to do? I just enjoy the experience. This is something happened. Do I start hearing voices? Whatever. And then I just relaxed into it. The second time, I was like, right, now I know how it feels to be in. The second time was incredible. I was relaxed. I could just focus on my breathing. I was alone with my thoughts. Third time, I think I got a dodgy tank because I could still see some light coming through the edge, and that kind of threw me off. Fourth time was like a trip. I was seeing colours, I was seeing shapes, which kind of happens with some of my deeper meditations now anyway. It was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to do it again.
I would say, have you ever considered, but you might have already done it, I don't know. And if you could saying that you it was like a trip meditating, like have you considered or have you done, like whether it's just meditation or in general, on something like acid or mushrooms or anything like that?
Well, I have had much previous history with acid and mushrooms. And when you first start doing these things, you just want fun. You just want to see some cool stuff. You just want to go places. You want to talk to trees that are suddenly moving and things like that. It's only in my later adult years, and I haven't done it for maybe 4, maybe even 5 years now, maybe even a little bit longer. That I start thinking, Joe, like there's no need to be a kid. Like there's actual potential benefits from doing this the right way, taking much, much smaller doses and meditating, not just mucking around or trying to watch a cool TV show or something like that. Like it's obviously becoming a much more mainstream thing now. Guys like Rogan, talking about it, Dorian Yates as well. All these guys talking about the benefits that they're getting from it, from not using them as party drugs. Now, I haven't done it, like I say, for about 4 or 5 years. Is it on my mind to do again? Yeah, 100%. 100%. 2 retreats in Europe that I'm looking at. Obviously, COVID permitting, so I don't think they're going to happen this year. But to try and get into that deep meditative state whilst under the influence, going to get some powerful insight, I believe.
And it's the ability for that. It's also the ability. It's almost like you get closer to people in those environments as well. It's like listening to a story or listening to a music, and when it takes you back in a memory, it's a whole nother level, right? Like I'm just like, I feel like I'm there, and you can really sort of go into those sort of things. And so you mentioned retreats for things like acid and mushrooms, things like this. I mean, is ayahuasca something that is on your to-do list in terms of professional?
Ayahuasca is on my 3-year vision to do twice in those 3 years. There is a place in Europe who are not open at the moment because obviously, cost permitting. I'm sure going deep into the jungles of Peru, you might find somewhere a bit more authentic, and there is, some serious ayahuasca-related tourism going on and some horrific horror stories coming out. But I've researched and spoke to this person quite a bit, and it all seems legit. It just so happens to be in Europe. And Amsterdam, with the slow legalization of mushrooms there, again, there will be mushroom-related retreats happening very, very soon. So those two things are on my radar.
Yeah, I think like there's not much that necessarily scares me. A little bit, a healthy dose of cautiousness with these things. It's probably making you do your research and not go into these silly things. But ayahuasca is one of those things I could totally see the benefits of it. When you look into like Rogan, Dorian Yates, you mentioned Brian. I would say Brian Rose. Sorry, inspiration for the podcast in a way, but the Defi thing makes me think that maybe this didn't have a good effect on him.
Thoughts on Brian?
I used to love him. Looking at those things and I can totally see Richard Branson even. I'm totally seeing the benefit of all these things. But the idea of shitting yourself and vomiting for 4 hours in the woods, it's a big ordeal to say, I'm going to do that. It's the next level from taking a bath, isn't it?
The fact that you'll be doing that in front of other people as well, that's got to ruin your experience a little bit. They don't talk about that.
You get relaxed, you have this breakthrough moment. The next day, you ruin it when you're looking sideways at the person next to you, just like, right. Yeah. That's on the radar. I probably, never say never, but I probably won't do LSD again. It's very easy to lose yourself on LSD. With mushrooms, I always found it a lot more grounded. I saw some cool shit. I saw some crazy shit. And I've done that. I don't need to keep being taken aboard UFOs and things like that. I've done that. I don't need any more. If ayahuasca and a mushroom retreat does that again for me, cool. But I'm sure there's much, much deeper levels I can get to under the guidance that they will give you as well. I've heard of mushrooms and LSD. They make you aware of things that are going on in your head with a few cool shit. Yeah. And then ayahuasca finds you solutions.
Seems like it.
Yeah. Really. And when I watched the London Real documentary about the Recalibrate or whatever the name, because they changed the name, but about his ayahuasca retreats. And often he was like, the second one where he went really deep into it, they looked at sort of like going into almost world problems, like problems bigger than him, he was trying to find solutions for. It's like, that is unreal.
Hey, man. And like I said, I'm one of those people that I'll try anything once. So
with the things that you've tried, like obviously dialing it back away from hallucinogenic drugs, what are the things that you would say, talk about meditation being number one? We talked about porn and NoFap. What are the things that you've done that you feel like this was really worthwhile, whether you've kept it going or not? What have you seen benefits from in the last year?
More than any of those things was meditating. By far. Yeah. By far. My God. However, it's all part of one big circle. How do I get more time to meditate and more clarity during those meditations? Well, it helps if the 20 minutes I need to meditate isn't 20 minutes taken up in the day because I was, lying in bed watching porn for 20 minutes instead, or longer, or whatever. So it's all kind of added up in one big circle. Is what are the destructive habits that I cut out, and what did I do with the extra energy and time that I got? My workouts are phenomenal. Can't remember the last time I enjoyed training this much, because I've got more energy to do so and have more productive workouts, and I've got more positive energy throughout the day as well. My sleep spell, everything. So I can't say which one thing did that, but I can definitely say the meditation probably had the more positive and physical effect.
Have you played much around with cold therapy and sort of the Wim Hof sort of stuff?
I've done some Wim Hof stuff. Did a round of Wim Hof on the beach, and then getting in the North Sea on a Paul Mort seminar, which was phenomenal. I can't believe how warm that water felt. It was ridiculous. I've done a little bit myself on the app, but it's something I definitely need to double down on. My meditations are great. I sometimes, if I have the time to, will maybe go for an hour. And if it's a really, really good one, this is where I can almost kind of recreate some of the trippy things I've seen before. but I just let it happen. If my brain wants to create these things, cool, let it. But I'm not thinking about anything else that's going on. But I could go, well, I'll do half-hour meditation, and then it gives me a half hour to work on the breath work or some cold immersion stuff or things like that. It's definitely something that intrigues me. And to be fair, a very well-known fitness figure came out recently bashing the whole cold showers, saying there's no research behind it, which was a very, very cherry-picked selection of studies that he chose. But if you look at it at the most basic level, if you jump in a cold shower or a cold bath and you get out, you are awake, you are alive. So if all you're doing the first thing in the morning is 30 seconds in a cold shower, regardless of any biological effect it may or may not have, it's going to wake you the fuck up in a really good way. You're not going to have a crash later down the line by, like you normally would, drinking 3 cups of coffee. I think naturally rather than synthetically.
Yeah, and I think as well, if you look at the effects of stress response in the central nervous system, a number of health implications. We're all going to have heightened stress response at times. Like when you do it deliberately, training for the sake of argument. I think going to something like cold therapy, where it really kicks in your stress response, and learning to breathe through it and be comfortable in those environments, I definitely think there's a carryover to if something else happens stressful in your life, you can draw back on that experience of, no, I'm all right, I can get through this. And overall, you may not get that same level of, big crash when something like the pattern break happens again. You can sort of work through it. You can kind of keep going with it. Like I did there's an event here, a Wim Hof method event, where they test like your CO2 tolerance, and I went from sort of like holding my breath for like 70 seconds to hold my breath for close to 7 minutes. So there was a guy who got like 9 minutes, and it was just in the day going through like various breathing. There was a DMT breath work. It didn't work as good as I expected it to, but
the old holotropic one, the really fast.
Yeah. There was various things once you try, and you end the day getting in this ice bucket, and the first, you're right, it still feels cold, but I got there 2 minutes. In the end, I was like, I can stay in here. And I was panicking about it. I was practicing cold showers a week before, and it's amazing what you can do. And even looking at the studies on Wim himself of what he's managed to do to his body it's just there's something in this. I think in the same way that a lot of the stuff that Charles Poliquin or John Meadows, may rest in peace, came out with that people smashed. Right? There's no research on this. Just give it 5 years. It'll catch up.
Yeah, exactly. But both of them years ahead of their time by miles. Probably more so than anyone else in recent years, certainly. And the people that will bash this stuff, and again, straight away say, well, there's no research. Research can be skewed because a lot of stuff is based on people reporting back. And we know, as PTs, people don't always report what is accurate. And you've got to look at who's funding some of these studies as well. You have to look at both of those things. So you can't just say, well, here's a study, because, that's quite a narrow view to take. Try it out. What have you got to lose? Actually try it on yourself. Some people might be watching this going, oh, Wim Hof, what's the point? Sounds a bit pointless. It's just breathing. Fucking give it a go. What have you got to lose by doing it for a week or 2 weeks or even just once?
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about the studies there, and I wasn't necessarily going into this too much. This will be another episode for another day, back when I want to get demonetized. But we're talking about research. That's something, but I do think it's an important point for people to listen to now when it comes to how to understand and how to interpret research. Because there was a study that came out on SCMP here recently, studies shown that the Pfizer vaccine will, the effects of it will dissipate after 6 months. And people were starting to panic about it. Like, oh no, what are we going to do? Pfizer funded the study. And if, the world's in a mad place right now. I say, well, this is definitely an episode for another day, but I do understand when it comes to anything, whether it's looking at the research based on coronavirus, whether it's Wim Hof breathing, whether it's looking at hallucinogenic drugs and whether they're going to kill you or whether they're going to benefit you and make you fantastic, or whether it's masturbating habits. Understand when you're looking at research, most things are at the extremes in life. This is a weird gesture to do on this podcast, isn't it? For audio listeners, that's great content. But the answer is always in the middle. And I find that we're getting into a world now, and this is probably a good place to sign off, but we're getting into a world now where people are being pulled to extremes. This is good, this is bad. If you don't agree with this, you're wrong. And remember, a year or so ago, if 3 years ago, you said, this is how we're going to be living our life. These are the restrictions we're going to be placed on. You go, you're a conspiracy theorist. Now, if you don't agree with them, you're a conspiracy theorist. So when it looks to the way you interpret, where you go about your day-to-day life, whether you look at the professional and personal development habits that you do, try it. Do your own research. Find out the middle ground to the things you're looking at. Because I know, moving away from COVID, if we look back at the LSD stuff we talked about, there is so much research now coming out on hallucinogenic drugs that we missed 30 years of because it was classed as a Class A drug purely for the fact that the American government did not want people in the Cold War going against the government.
Yeah.
100% true.
Exactly.
Yeah. So with to sort of close off, because I know you've got work to do. It's not, you can't just sit on a 4-hour podcast with me all day. Although I could chat about this stuff for ages.
We could do a meditation.
Yeah. I can happily get you on for a COVID episode, and I would definitely get you on for a fitness bullshit episode. If someone's looking at this, they've been inspired, right, for this. They've taken the hand out from the pants and they've turned off the porn in the background, and they want to start to take care of their life. How would you recommend someone get started on deciding which habit to start with, where to start with it? How do they start piecing this thing together?
It's the one that is causing the most damage. And not necessarily psychological or physiological damage. That could just be the damage in your relationship, or the damage of your earning potential because you're wasting your time watching porn when you could be doing something more productive. So let's say it is porn, for an example. Okay, what are the benefits to stopping that for me, but who else does it impact? And the one that impacts most other people is the one that needs to go first. Okay, she might be watching copious amounts of porn, but only jerking off, I don't know, some people, I see guys on the train watching it. I see guys on the train, man, come on. But obviously they're not jerking off on the train, but they're probably going to get...
There's a video in Hong Kong of someone doing that on the MTR. Thankfully, I wasn't on that train.
Oh, God. So who else is benefited? Well, if you stop jerking off and wasting all your energy on porn, you're probably going to have more energy for better sex with your wife, better communication and more closeness with your wife or your girlfriend, or you're going to have more energy to go out and meet someone. And women can tell the difference between a man who is full of this male energy, sexual energy inside of him, or someone who is wasting it all on porn. They know the difference. Of course they do. It's the type of guys they go for. So it's who else does it impact, both currently and future as well. Because again, you might be, there are some horrific, again, not studies, more surveys on guys that have admitted to they're watching porn while their wife is laying next to them in bed because they didn't get to have sex that night. And well, that's not your wife's fault. That's not really porn's fault either. There's something else going on in that. If you had more energy and if your wife's asleep, you probably should be asleep. We're back. Any of those habits, take an audit of your life. Like I say, get clarity on what you're not happy with, what you're doing that is actually causing damage or taking time away from you. List them all out. Look at which ones are taking the most time from your week and who else it impacts. Now, then look at the positives and negatives of making a change. If you manage to change this and overcome this and switch this around, how does that benefit you? Therefore, how does that benefit other people? What are the drawbacks of not making a change? How does that affect you? How does that affect other people as well? So then you get a bit of leverage behind it because of it impacts other people, not just you. You get a bit of clarity as well on how much time you're actually wasting on this and how you actually want your life to look. Now, that can be, I would suggest most people is to start meditating, because then you're having that break in the day where your brain is not hopefully, once you get good at it, not thinking about porn, not getting horny, not getting stressed, not getting anxious. You get more control over that. You get more control over your day. You're less likely to start jerking off and reaching for porn, reaching for junk food, getting stressed, getting anxious, getting bored. If that's all you do is add that into your life, that's going to have massive positive benefits.
Cool.
The bare minimum.
Awesome, right. And so just in case my computer decides to go haywire again, I think that's a great sign-off point. I said we'll definitely get you on again to talk about a couple of topics. In that little interlude, we already came up with a few ideas. So before we get you back on, where can people find more about you? Because your content, you talk a lot about this, you speak your mind, there's no BS, there's no filter. Where can people listen to that entertaining content?
So the best place to find me at the moment is Instagram, while I'm currently launching my website and YouTube channel, but there's no point giving you an address yet when it's not live. So just find me on Instagram, type in Robb Core, that's ROBBCORE, and you will find me, you'll find my vids, you will find the links as they go up and the updates on what I'm doing over the next couple of months. And if it resonates with you, give us a shout. Let's start a conversation. If it's just for entertainment, perfect. Give it a like, give it a share, give it a follow, and hit the subscribe button. Simple as.
Awesome. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, man. I say we'll definitely do this soon.
Thank you, my man. Pleasure was all mine.